time, or is it straight no Q&A time? How is it structured?
So we won't be having any Q&A.
We are live right now, so Priya, we can please take it on.
A very good afternoon to everyone present here. Thank you so much for joining us virtually for our panel discussion today, which is on empowering women entrepreneurs to drive economic growth. The panel will focus on women entrepreneurship in changing times and how women are taking the charge and progressing in the startup ecosystem. I would now like to introduce the moderator for today's session, Dr. Apoorv Ranjan Sharma, who is the co-founder of Venture Catalyst, which is India's first integrated incubator. He is also the co-founder and managing director of 9 Unicorns, which is India's first accelerator VC. Dr. Sharma has been a pioneer in establishing incubators in India and has also been a recipient of the prestigious Best Incubator Award given by the President of India. I would now like to hand it over to Dr. Sharma to take this discussion forward. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Riya. It's a very momentous occasion when we are discussing today, in a year of unicorn, the role of women entrepreneurs and how it can be empowered further. I would like to request everyone to give 1 minute's intro as well as their point of view to start with, and then I'll start shooting questions specific to each one of you. So shall we start like that? Who would like to start first? Padmaja?
Okay.
Yeah, please.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for inviting me to this panel. Before I start, I do want to say 2 words. One, great traction in this startup week, right through the week, Startup India. So all kudos to you guys, DPIIT Secretary and the team under him. So congratulations. The second, I am suitably humbled and feel very, very touched with Dr. Renu Swaroop's presence here. We are on a very relevant topic of women entrepreneurs, but I think the power under the wings of entrepreneurs, not only women, in the biotech, medtech space is Dr. Swaroop. So thank you, Dr. Swaroop, just for joining. It just enhances this session dramatically. My name is Padmaja Ruparel, as Apoorv mentioned. I am the co-founder of IAN, which is India's first angel investor group, and the founding partner of the IAN Fund. What I have been involved in the ecosystem now for over 20 years, helping to found TIE, IBCA, and IAN. And what we are now trying to do is really create India's single largest platform for seed and early stage investing, so that young startup entrepreneurs not only are able to raise money, but leverage the powerful mentor network and the global market access that we've created. We have been very fortunate in terms of our entrepreneurs as well as our investors. We've created some very, very interesting, valuable companies. And today our companies together are holding a market value of almost 5 billion. So that's where we've sort of bred and seeded companies which have now become global. And our investors, of course, have received cash returns in multiple hundreds of. So I'll stop there.
Okay, great. And then thank you, Padmaja. Rima, would you like to come on? Yeah. Rima, you're on mute.
I was on mute. Sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot. Like Padmaja, I would also like to congratulate the DPIIT for the wonderful event that they have organized. It was really good to see the turnout of all the startups over the pitching sessions and all the other sessions as well. Kudos to all of you to pull this off, and to the supporting TIE and CII teams as well. I'm from Ankur Capital, co-founder of Ankur Capital. We are an early stage fund. We invest into transformative technologies, deep technologies, for the next billion in India and for the world. So we've been investing in some cutting edge technologies across agri-tech, health tech, and in the current fund, we have extended it to fintech and edtech as well, and clean tech. We are now into our third fund, which we are in the process of raising as of now. We are a gender agnostic fund, but we've had, because of our focus on science and technology, I'm happy to say is the fact that we've had 25% of women founded startups in our portfolio. We're shooting for this to be higher. And it's really good to be part of this group to discuss about the next, how we could improve those percentages going forward. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Ghazal, would you like to pick up? Ghazal? Yeah, Ghazal, we can't hear you. Are you on mute? Yeah.
Yes, I was trying to unmute. Thank you so much. Good morning to everyone here, and it's a pleasure to be on this panel with a very experienced and diverse set of industry leaders. Hello.
Yeah. You please continue. We can hear you.
Is there? Great. So, I'm I co-founded Rigo about 7 years ago. It is a tech-led disruptive innovation in a very old and unorganized industry, which is logistics and trucking in India. 2014 was also early days of the startup ecosystem beginning to evolve, and being a part of the ecosystem, having seen how it has evolved over the last 6-7 years, gives me a lot of hope for what is about to come in the next many years. I'm currently working on my next venture, which has the ability to end one chapter of a startup in your journey and to move on to the next with all the learnings and all the all that the ecosystem has to offer. Gives me a lot of joy and also excitement about what I'm up to building next.
Oh, there's some disconnect. Okay, done. Dr. Renu, you've been into DBT, and you had great experience interacting with entrepreneurs there. Please, I would request if you can pick up 1 minute and introduce it, and also talk about for 1 minute about this topic, please, Dr. Renu. Dr. Renu, we can't hear you.
Thank you so much, and it's always a pleasure to be with all of you here. It's good to see the entire ecosystem enabler group here. Yes, I think compliments to DPIIT for having this innovation week, but I think what it tells us today is we've come a long way from when we started the Startup Action Plan in 2016, and I go with my experience of BIRAC and DBT when we started BIRAC in 2012. We've really moved a long way from there. But today we have, and I'm hoping that this panel will be able to give some very good insights. Your topic is very interesting, empowering women entrepreneurs to drive economic growth. And many of you and Padmaja and Rima will recall a couple of years back, we would really be discussing as to how do we bring women entrepreneurs into the forefront. Today we are talking about how are they going to drive economic growth. So there's a clear shift that we see. And I think it's this enabling ecosystem that we have created. And what is also very interesting is that in this panel, we see what are the key aspects, the access to technology. And I'm glad to see Abhishek here, who's going to, I'm sure, talk about access to technology, access to finance. You have Rima and Padmaja who are going to talk about it, access to the whole ecosystem, which the DPIIT team has been working along with all the ministries and departments. So it's really wonderful. And I think it's important for us to now identify in this panel what really are those key issues and challenges which we are facing now to see the scalability of this ecosystem. I think that's really where we need to focus on. Why is it not scaling? I caught bits of what Rima was saying initially before we went live, is to are they really making that impact? We're seeing numbers, but are those numbers making an impact? So I think maybe if this session focuses on those aspects, this would be wonderful for us to take forward. So thank you, and we can go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Renu. Abhishek, your 1 minute, please.
Yeah, thank you, Apuru, and it's indeed an honor and privilege to be on this panel. And first and foremost, I would like to also compliment DPIIT for an astounding innovation week, startup innovation week, and the deliberation since the last few days has been like very, very good. The sessions that I've been able to join in, and today's panel, of course, it's a privilege to be among such distinguished women leaders who have been like making an impact with the Ghazal. I know and her startup for a long time, and I've been hearing about Padmaja and Rima and Dr. Sarup ma'am say we have always been looking forward to BIRAC and how BIRAC's models can be implemented in METI Startup Hub. I'm part of METI, CEO MyGov and CEO Digital India, and we have been working for promoting startups in the field of IT. And when it comes to women, we have been like seeing that when it comes to electronics and IT, we have seen many startups and many tech companies in India, and including the government tech company NIC, being led by women leaders for a very long time. Even President NASSCOM, and top majors, all top majors have in India, whether it's Intel or Microsoft, they have women tech leaders. So we have been having a good experience, and we have found that when we involve women in technology-led startups, we get much better results. The Shri Shakti challenge that we did last year as part of MyGov saw some great solutions for COVID, and look forward to this interesting interaction today.
Great. So today we have, I hope I've covered all the speakers, Oshika. No one left, right? Okay. So today we have some inspirational leaders here. Frankly, Padmaja and Rima, both of you, great learnings from both of you, and you are the names in the investing side. Ghazal, you have been an inspiration for so many entrepreneurs, not just women entrepreneurs, but a lot of entrepreneurs. When we talk in our circles, you are one of the most inspirational name. When I used to, my partner from Stanford grad, he used to talk about a lot about you, and he said, this is the way how the new age entrepreneurs. Today we see about 13 odd startups. You see they're about which are unicorns, and they have women co-founders, right? Out of 82 unicorns which we have in India. And like every other field, we have growing dominance from the women side. Do you see that in the next 3-4 years, this ratio of 15% will grow to maybe 30-40%? Or what's your view on women coming and leading unicorns and creating unicorns? You have been successful creating Revigo. So would you like to share your thoughts on that? Ghazal, we can't hear. Come tell us. Yeah.
You're not audible.
Oshika, can you hear?
No, I can't hear you, Ghazal.
Ghazal, we can't hear you. Can you unmute or something, or maybe increase the volume of your set or something? Maybe because of that.
I think she'll have to log out and log in again. There's probably a technical.
Okay. So maybe you can log out and then join again. That is what is advised. Otherwise, we can't hear your voice. Yeah. Okay, anyway, so what do we do? Because we can't hear her voice, we'll request Padmaja or Rima, if you would like to share your views on the growing number of unicorn leaders, women leaders in the recent times.
Rima, why don't you go for it?
So I'm of the strong opinion that this is going to keep increasing. What we have to provide for is more wind beneath their wings, because what you're now seeing is the fact that in the last 5-6 years, there is a significant number of women entrepreneurs who are entering the startup system. Earlier, you would get maybe 1 in 25, 30 companies that you would get in your pipeline would be like you're led by a women entrepreneur. What you're now seeing is the fact that at least 2 or 3 out of every 10 applications that we get in our pipeline, we are seeing that there are women entrepreneurs. So there is a clear change that is happening. The fact that it is still 15% is of concern, no doubt. But I think that coupled with the fact that the inflow of women entrepreneurs is increasing, plus I think that a lot of other enabling things that like what we are going to discuss today, plus the whole ecosystem trying to see how we could increase the number of women entrepreneurs. I feel that in the next 5-6 years, we should see those numbers come into 30-odd%. I don't think should be a problem, but we have to collectively work towards that, of seeing how we can keep that momentum going, how we can keep increasing the inflow to about 50% of it, because then what happens is the fact that the ones that get funded and the ones that can scale can still be on the higher side. So I think we have to keep the momentum going. There's a lot of other suggestions which will come out through this session today, I assume, which will help and see how we can keep those momentum up. I would also say that apart from this, we should also consider of other metrics to see about other than unicorns as to how we can keep the number of women entrepreneurs participating in the business activity of the country to be at a high level. So unicorns should be one metric. There should also be other metrics to measure as
How many number of new startups? Yeah, that's true.
Ghazal has joined us back, so maybe we should get Ghazal too.
Please.
He's the one who's going to tell us what can we do to get more of us.
I hope I'm audible now.
Yeah, very much now.
Yes.
Great. No, it's strange that after 2 years of video conferencing and everything, you still find that once in a time incident where things don't work. But thank you so much, Dr. Sharma, for the very kind and generous introduction. I would just say on my part, I've taken a few risks and tried to stay at it, and it's if it's able to inspire a few, that's that's a deed well done. Regarding your question around do I see the change to women participation in startup ecosystem increasing to 30-40%? Let me give you a data point, and then it's what we interpret of it. Very recently, I'd come across this article which said funding in women-led businesses at an all-time high. That's what the article said. And if you go through it, it spoke about the US data, and it said that in 2020 the VC dollars going towards women-led startups was about 2.8%, which, by the way, was 50 basis points higher than the previous year. Now, I thought it was a completely misleading headline to a data that was quite abysmal, right? If we go by data on what is the participation or how is it moving, we will be disappointed because the base is so low, right? I mean, we're looking at 80 odd unicorns, and out of that very abysmal numbers of women co-founder startups in the ecosystem. So I don't see the numbers change drastically till there is something that sparks the change. If we continue on what it is, it's going to be the role models, and then those role models and the more platforms like these can sort of humanize these women-led entrepreneurship stories so that others relate to it, rather than glorifying some of these. We need to humanize these stories that, hey, this is relatable. And to me, that will lead to some natural progression in this, but I don't see something that's going to spark that change. And for example, Nykaa listing last year, I think, was one such event, right? And
one of the best IPOs.
Absolutely. And that too, like, the Indian startup ecosystem needed a Nykaa, and we got one, right? So to me, there would be some of these incidents which will move the needle faster. But I think the whole ecosystem needs to come along beyond just role models, which means investments, platforms, community, coaching, to really move things to the scale that you're talking about.
Okay, so growing participation, you mean to say, and you also said the iconization of many companies, I mean, people like Nykaa founders, will help it grow further. Great inputs. I've been, a lot of investments in the recent past. Of course, last 1.5 years, there's no China investments in India. But some of my past investments, we raised capital in China. They told me that if there is a woman founder, Chinese VCs look at it very seriously. Padmaja and Rima, you are active investors and you are running VC funds. Do you see some kind of balancing coming in the co-founding team when there is a woman co-founder? Do you guys also see some kind of, these kind of things which Chinese VCs are looking at?
So, Purva, if I just take a step back for a minute, I think there has been a dramatic change in at least what we are seeing on the ground in terms of the kind of deals and gender diversity in terms of founders, right? I think if I was looking at it about 5 years ago, the number of companies that we were receiving, which were led by women or even co-founded by one woman, we were looking at about 5 to 6%. Okay. 2019, I still remember our numbers were somewhere around 10%. In 2021, when I'm looking at it, and I'm really making this a point because it is a post-pandemic, and the pandemic has been a once-in-a-lifetime kind of event in the country. It has had a dramatic effect. We've seen now about 22 to 24% of the companies that we are receiving, applications that we are receiving, which are led by women. Okay. And I think there are two big reasons. Number one, I think what we were alluding to in a slightly earlier discussion before the session started, I think the pandemic completely changed the focus of a lot of entrepreneurs and therefore a lot of VCs to look at biotech, to look at pharma, to look at stem cell, to look at drug discovery, etc. That was one big shift that we have seen. And it is natural. I mean, that's the need of the hour, and that's what entrepreneurs should be doing. Where we've had a number of women innovators who've been building their IP, building their innovation, building their products over a longer period, who've suddenly come into the investing platform side, right? I think that is where, from ideation and innovation, something that BIRAC has been probably working with for a number of years with these entrepreneurs who've now moved from being innovators to entrepreneurs. That's one big change that has happened. The second big change, I think, what has happened is India has gone digital in the fastest in the world, right? And the pandemic has just accelerated that. So today, with the digital becoming almost primary, which was actually secondary or before the pandemic, there was a lot of offline work happening, which was supported by online. Today, it's the reverse, right? So I think today anything tech has become the mantra, right? So you could go into any sector, you choose a sector and you will have a technology play there. In fact, you will have technology-led play there, right? Including manufacturing, which one would have thought is a very offline space, right? So what has happened the minute you do tech, the minute you do what it is doing, it is following a trend that we have been seeing in this country for 30 years. And why do I say that? Okay, if you look at the tech industry, the software services industry, right? It is the first generation, it is the first generation entrepreneurial industry in this country, right? Now there, when you looked at the gender diversity, you almost had a 50% split between men and women, right? Because you as a woman were not required to go into a factory. You were not required to go and battle with different inspectors. You were not battling with unions, etc. Right? You were building IP, you were building software, you were building technology on computers and laptops, right? That entire culture and way of working got transformed into the digital world. So the entire digital space, the tech development space, has brought in many more women into the play. Now, why am I bringing this background is to go back to your question, which was saying that would we see, what do we need to see more women about? Will we get 30% from 14%? And we are seeing there are two things that have changed. Okay, I think, and I don't think women are citizens. You know, women are very much part of this whole demography and the whole ecosystem that we are building. The whole focus on startups and starting up as a career option has just increased dramatically. And for women, it has become even more, even a further primary choice, because you can do many more things just doing a startup, right? So women can actually build very valuable startups. And Nika is exactly one of them, right? She was doing, she was in Kotak, she was doing a great job there. Sorry, she was doing a great job there, but look what she created by just one of the needs of women, right? So to my mind, I think what women will be able to do, you will see an increasing involvement of women in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, purely because we are going digital, purely because we are creating companies in this country which will go global. And we are seeing this over and over again. That's a big piece. So that is, and the focus that we have now on spaces which are focused on impact or improving our lives, not just looking at nice to have things or products, need to have products, will bring more women into the play. But it will also bring, let me also say it in the same breath, it will also bring more men into the fray to become entrepreneurs. So will the 14% change to 30%? My guess is no. It will probably be another 100. It will probably take it 50%. I would agree with Ghazala to that extent. We won't see a dramatic jump in a year or two, but we will see a continuous jump going forward. Yeah.
So this technology digital transformation is one of the very strong underlying drivers to grow the growing participation of the women entrepreneurs. Point taken. Definitely. Ghazal, you were saying something?
And I think the other piece that you asked, sorry Ghazal, just to complete the response to Apur's question, like Chinese investors, are we looking out for more women investors? My personal view is I am looking out for entrepreneurs who can make it happen, who are determined to build companies irrespective of any hurdle. So to me, I look at entrepreneurs only neck up. I don't care neck down, honestly. I'm lucky if you're a woman, I'm happy as a woman, but I think it's the entrepreneur herself
which
or
matters.
himself which matters.
Which matters. Ghazal, you were saying something?
Yes.
You wanted to add?
So while, the whole digital and role model, the two factors that are playing out in the last, 3 to 5 years is you're seeing more role models and you're seeing more sort of digital first startups is both a good factor to get more to increase the deal flow, right? You're as the data that shared, that you're seeing more and more deals of startups that are led by women. I think where still work needs to be done is the conversion. See, what you see as unicorns are outcome of a journey of building something to scale, which means that you're able to build a team, you're able to fundraise, you're able to survive ups and downs, right? And frankly, it is that conversion where the ecosystem is yet nascent, and maybe as funnel increases this will evolve. But if we have to work, then it is how do you ensure that 25% of deal flow actually results in large scalable tech-led global businesses being founded by women, and not just just sort of just the deal flow increase.
Correct. Just a question to Abhishek. Abhishek, you working with the government side, both side, and I've seen in Y Combinator in US, right? They look at the accelerators and their top accelerators in US. When they are funding startups, they also have a parameter how many women founders they funded, right? And they also look at how many blacks they funded out, right? They all write it in their website, etc. Do you have a message for Indian accelerators, or even to the government, how to encourage more women how to encourage women entrepreneurship? Would you like to give some message to, or you have some other point of view, some other point which you would like to make to encourage women entrepreneurship in India?
See, I would like to agree with what Padmaja and Ghazal was saying. Ultimately, we all do feel that we need to encourage women entrepreneurship from the level it is to much higher, but it will take some time to happen to make that happen. And as a government, while VCs may have the primary responsibility of getting returns for the investors, but as a government, one of the other responsibilities is ensuring equity. And for doing so, the government, in every plan that it has for promoting VCs, or for building up funds, or for ensuring seed funding, or for incubation programs, for all such programs, there are incentives which are earmarked for women-led startups. In fact, several states have come up with policies under which a monthly allowance is given for women-led startups for a fixed number of years. And then there are states like Rajasthan, which have set up their iStart scheme, under which they have earmarked 500 crores, and their 100 crores of the funding is earmarked for women-led startups. Similarly, Government of India also, when we launched the BPO scheme, therein the incentive that was provided under the scheme was 5% higher if it was a women employer or a women-led startup. Right. So these kind of incentives are there in almost every scheme to promote that. And what would ideally require is that we address the key challenges that are there, because ultimately VCs will fund only if there are sufficient number of women-led startups which are coming in. So how Correct. Do we create a pipeline of women-led startups? How do we provide them the right platforms for doing that? We've been working with Niti Aayog for the Women Entrepreneurship Awards. We're doing hackathons in which women-led startups have been identified. So these platforms providing seed funding, providing incubation supports, supporting accelerators for women-led startups will create a sufficient number of fundable women-led startups, and then the VCs will chip in. To expect that right. VCs will drive it, it will not be that way. The government will have to step in first, followed by the VCs.
Dr. Renu, would you like to chip into the same conversation and talk about, what kind of steps, like you have been leading DBT for longer time, for one of the long time, and do you want to, propose something, or do you also want to highlight something, how these schemes are helping to promote women entrepreneurship in India?
So thank you, Apurva. I think there are certain key questions that we are asking ourselves, and probably from what the panelists have spoken, you've got some very strong key messages. See, the key issue is, where are we today, and right. what are we wanting to be a couple of years down the line?
Yeah.
Clearly, I think, yes, we do have ambitions of having 50% or equal women entrepreneur numbers, but
rather more.
Sure. I mean, if it's a gender diversity, I'll say 50% fine. But the fact is, we are saying we have challenges today. You've heard, Kasil, you've heard Padmaja saying, how do we reach from that 14 to even 30 may not be possible.
Okay.
I think the key issue that we need to discuss is probably break it into two aspects. One is how are we facilitating the entrepreneurial growth ecosystem within the country?
Okay.
One aspect of it. And within that, how are we then trying to get women to be entrepreneurs to move ahead? Now, the entrepreneurial ecosystem, how we are growing it, and rightly Abhishek said, the government plays a very important role.
Yeah.
DBT, my own experience of so many years, plus BIRAC that we founded in 2012, we started with just about 50 startups in the whole biotech ecosystem. Today, we are talking about over 5,000 startups. But yes, at that point of time, we probably didn't even have less than 1% women startups. Today, we are talking about nearly 20% women startups.
Oh, that's
So
great.
somebody is going to say, you heard Padmaja and Rima say that they had about 22% of the applications coming in from women entrepreneurs in the biotech and the pharma space. Right? Padmaja has said the focus has come on biotech, pharma because of the pandemic. But this couldn't happen just within the 2 years time frame. We had created a whole pipeline of women entrepreneurs who were then ready to jump into it when there was a need. So if you just start looking at numbers and say, okay, how many unicorns are we going to have next year? I think that's not really a correct question to ask or for us to even make any assumptions. It all depends upon the critical mass that you have. It's a pyramid. How strong is the base of your pyramid? How strong are you going to make that base of the pyramid? It's true. A column that's going to move. We know that that's really how it's going to head. So our focus has to be on trying to strengthen that base. And that's what we've been doing within the government system, within BIRAC, within DBT. Our focus, and this is gender agnostic. Our focus has not been only to strengthen a woman entrepreneurial base or male dominant. I mean, we don't segregate an ecosystem and say this is an ecosystem for women because a very right answer. When VCs are going to invest, Rima, you would vouch for it. You are definitely going to encourage women entrepreneurs, but for an investment purpose, you're going to look at the value of that investment that you're making. You would love to have more women there, but just because somebody is a woman, you're not going to make an investment. So those sort of differentiations do not come in. So what's important for us is to strengthen that base, try and get more women entrepreneurs to get into the journey. Where do we have to focus? And the government has started doing that. This has to go much, much earlier than even when they start thinking of becoming women entrepreneurs. You actually have, and let me tell you this, the focus is not just on the big cities. There is to be a lot of focus onto the tier 2 and tier 3 cities as well. So in the government has done that. How many, you also try to do an analysis to, when you go to IITs, how many students do you actually have girl students who come out? Because that's the pipeline that's coming in. So you need to fuel that pipeline as well to try and see how you strengthen that. And that is what we have focused on. We've tried.
So Dr. Renu, Dr. Renu, like the way FinTech Yatra promoting a lot of FinTech startups in India, right? It was driven by NRCEL, people from IIMS, and I've seen a result, a lot of good startup FinTech. You mean to say that some initiative dedicated should be there to promote women entrepreneurship, to encourage women entrepreneurship in India?
So I think what we need to do is, so you see, for the biotech, we've done, as I said, we've now moved into even sort of the young Yuva schemes, as we call them, where you're encouraging the youth to take on. Right now, or maybe it's only in the couple of years that we've seen that entrepreneurship has become a career option for women. It's all about, it's not just about what the woman wants to do, it's also about socio-cultural systems. It's all about mindsets. When you go to these smaller towns, it's about what options are you giving a woman to get into for a career option. It was never an option for women earlier. Now it started becoming an option because now you have access to technology, you have access to finance, you give them a level of confidence that they can move ahead. Many a time we decide what career options we want to make available for women. Just give
Right.
them the choice to decide themselves what they want to do. I'm very pleased in the last couple of years, we've now opened out all career options for women. Otherwise, we would say defense is not for women. Women can do this particular job, but they cannot do this particular job. Why do we decide that? Just give a career option and let women decide.
Let
You
women
will
decide.
automatically see the numbers increasing. You will automatically see the numbers increasing. So I think,
but at least the barriers should be removed, and the
remove the
level playing
barriers,
field should be provided.
go to the education level. I think it's right at the fundamental education level where we need to change these mindsets.
Correct.
We have started in the Ministry of Science and Technology a scheme called Vigyan Jyoti. Now, what is Vigyan Jyoti? Vigyan Jyoti is where we are encouraging young girl students to get into engineering colleges. We've seen more of them in biology, but we're not seeing them in mathematics. We're not seeing them in engineering. We've opened up the space area. The whole Department of Space now has space into a startup mode, iSpace as they have it. How will you attract more women into the space field when you don't see so many of them getting into that even from the education viewpoint? So it has to be all encompassing. You have to look at it from the education, build a very strong foundation, build a critical mass, and then give them these special women-led incubators or special women incubators, special incentives where you can drive them. So I think that's really where we have to focus on the base. Build a foundation, you'll see larger numbers coming into it automatically.
Great. I think very good inputs, because at the base level and the bottom of pyramid, what do we do to encourage this? How many incubators we set up for women? How many yatras we take out? And what are the schemes to promote it? Abhishek just pointed out a couple of schemes which are there in the government to encourage women entrepreneurship. Rima, I have one question. You mentioned in the beginning of the conversation there are sectors which are primarily dominate, like MSME. You have a lot of women entrepreneurs, right? In some of the sectors also, but there is no VC funding available there. Do you want to say that some alternative funding should be available, or would you like to tell Abhishek to present to the government, or Dr. Renu through message you want to give them?
Sure. So since the panel is about women participation, women entrepreneurship participation in the overall economy, I think it's important to look beyond venture-funded startups. Venture-funded startups is a very, very small percentage of the overall economy. And in order to get, and as a country, we have from time and again, we have said that the MSME sector is the backbone of our country. So if we really need to get women to participate more in the economy, and which is needed, I think we have to look at how we can have, while there's a lot of talk about how we could support the MSME sector, I think within that, how do we encourage more women entrepreneurs there is important. There is already a significant number of women entrepreneurs in the MSME sectors, people who are, especially around the micro entrepreneurship space. I think that as part of our accelerators and others, that there should be some focus, one, on seeing how we could support women entrepreneurs from the MSME sector. But moreover, I think that from a funding perspective, earlier, the 2-3 decades back, they used to, and I'm sure that they are still there, which is you had that small and medium initiatives for women businesses and all that used to be there. They used to get some 10 lakhs, 5 lakhs and all that used to be there. But I think that needs to be relooked at as to how could we support the entire MSME sector for women as such. There's one thing we should focus on. The second is that I think that while venture capital, because at the end of the day, we are sitting on capital that we have taken from others, including the government of India. And so our benchmark is going to be against how have you performed with the industry? Are you returning the numbers? So we're obviously, at the end of the day, we have to look at each business as for its own merit and not necessarily, and we have to inculcate processes which is gender agnostic, and there's no biases, but we have to look at it from an economic perspective. But what could be done, I think two things. One is that the same way as the fund of funds, when it comes through the SIIW, or when BIRAC has committed funds, there is a certain percentage that is expected. It need not be 50% or otherwise, but just to encourage, there could be some percentage of that could be expected, that could be driven. It may not be mandatory, but it could be driven. If we do that itself, there could be certain sensitivities that people could build in. The second thing I would say is the fact, as an extension of the MSME thing, that in the science and technology front, is there a way that we can create more women-led under either an MSME scheme or certain any other pocket that could be under the DBT or anything else, which could be more led towards women scientists? So one thing has happened is the fact that in India, compared to the rest of the world, we have had more women leaders in the financial sector than anywhere else. I mean, all the leading banks in India have all had women leaders. Rest of the women, this as well. I think we've had significant number of women leaders in the financial banking system. Science as well. If you look at the number of, whether it's engineering colleges or whether it's in people who are taking on PhDs, we do have, I'm not saying it's enough and there should be more, but we do have a segment of women. Can we look at creating schemes for funding some of those?
Alternative funding.
Alternative schemes, not just through VC. So VC could be one, there could be one pointer, I feel like.
You mean to say diversify the funding scenario from VC to alternative funding?
Other things as well. I think that as part of the startup scheme itself, we have the VC fund of funds. We should also have certain other pockets of money that is available.
Maybe part of
MSME
CSR can be given to, maybe part of CSR can be given to promote women entrepreneurs.
Actually, yeah. So it could be under CSR funding. It could be that women-led scientist, BIRAC registered startups. If you do that,
got it.
I can tell you there are. See, so a lot of very interesting companies that are there in BIRAC.
I'm sure, Abhishek, you're picking up the points from here. Or you have any points to make, Abhishek?
Yeah, in fact, I fully agree with the point that we need to provide alternative modes of funding, because very often when we look at the micro level, like a very important aspect that we miss out when the search for the unicorns and the bigger big names is that entrepreneurship happens at all levels. An example that I will give you, the common service centers, which are run by village level entrepreneurs, we have a network of 400,000 of them. Till last year, they had 40,000 women-led CSCs that we had. This year, the number is 70,000. So this year, the increase overall has been 100,000, out of which 30,000 have been women. So almost 30%, which is a significant number if we compare to what was earlier. And when we deep dive into it and we look into the problems and why women-led startups are not there, whether in that scheme or in the Mudra scheme, what we find is that very often when women start an enterprise or when they start a business of any kind, they find very difficult to source financing. And part of it is because of our traditional issues with regard to women not owning land, women not owning properties. So those issues also contribute to the lack of women who are, sometimes women are the ones who are actually running a startup or a business. But the business is incubated in the name of the man or the head of the family because he is the one who is able to access credit. So we need to realize that, and if we can break these and if we can provide for concessions, like how do we make funds available? How do we make fund of funds like the electronic development fund was made by MeitY for promoting electronics manufacturing in India. So can we think of building a fund of funds or some similar mechanism which will support women-led startups? So these are certainly ideas and solutions which we need to look into it for the point of equity, for the point of bringing in diversity, and for the point of just bringing new ideas into what is possible.
So the point that both of you are trying to make is that identify sectors where you have large number of women entrepreneurs in the MSME and provide alternative ways of funding also there.
Yeah, right? The pipeline has to be ensured. The pipeline has to be ensured because if you look at the school education, whenever the results are out, class 12 results, every year, like since childhood, we're seeing girls perform better than boys. But what happens to these girls later on? Why are we not able to support them? Why are we not able to sustain them? And if we're able to do that, it will result in greater value for everyone.
So we have Ghazal here, who is an entrepreneur, and she's also, represent, a large set of women entrepreneurs of India. Do you have some suggestions, Ghazal, on this? How to grow this and how to empower it more. Any first and any first thing which is coming in your mind? Yeah.
Sure. Again, while a lot has been mentioned that we should have alternative funding mechanisms for investing in women-led businesses, not just sort of the VC category. And somewhere I heard a point being made that we should, a VC is an investor and they would invest if it's a good deal. I think what is needed is to take out the systemic biases when somebody looks at a woman-led business. Those biases still exist. I've heard stories of women facing that.
Biases exist, great.
They still exist. Just to put some data there, women are a systemic disadvantage of raising early stage capital by a factor of about 75%, which means while you may see a lot of seed stage flow coming in, the mortality is much higher in the funnel that how many actually reach scale. And one big factor is their ability to raise follow-on rounds. And men don't have to face questions like male founders don't have to face questions or those biases that what if you get married, what if you have children, can you take tough calls, are you aggressive enough, can you create a hyper funded growth startup, right? So these are all the things going at the back of your mind and they play out during the journey of these things. Now therefore, even within the VC community, if you can either take out those biases or create dedicated funds that, hey, we don't come with biases, we will invest in you if you're a good deal to invest in, right? Or a good startup or a good business model to invest in. And I think that really needs to be solved because what will end up happening is you may start seeing 25 to 30% inflow of deals, but not many seeing the light of the day. And that becomes, the failure rates will increase and then, the whole setup that this is not for you, right? So we may actually see an adverse impact of that if this funding is not sorted out and the biases are not taken out. And it has to be solved not just by creating dedicated funds, but also having more diversity on the investing side. I mean, it is most of the places an all boys club, and the means to networking, the means to access are very different, right? And we have to acknowledge and be empathetic towards it. The second part is actually around mentorship and coaching. Women networks, professional networks don't exist today. So that is one another factor, that do I have access to a role model entrepreneur through my journey who will understand and empathize and be able to give relatable advice on the business but on the journey itself, right? And are we creating those coaching and mentorship platforms? And third is having a very thriving connected community that that is able to like discuss and think and create initiatives like this forum, right? Do we have a think tank or a community that is thinking of what will it take for us to move the needle, right? And have like a aspiration that we should see 30-40% unicorns in this much, and can you work back with initiatives and also see those implemented? I'm almost thinking like a think tank advocacy group, but I see all those missing while the inflow is increasing because digital first world and role models, but we're not thinking about how this will move. Will we see more failures or will we see more successes through this funnel?
Yeah, very valid point. In fact, the removal of the biasness towards the women entrepreneurs, probably someone should pick up, and also your suggestion on the creating a level playing field for them, especially, and also some forum which basically kind of provide a mentorship support for women entrepreneurs. I think this point I will anyway pick up. It's a very good point. I'm going to pick it up. Providing women entrepreneur panels to mentor the young entrepreneurs. So I think as an accelerator we can pick up this point for sure. But this is very valid point. Thank you. And I also saw some initiative which is Women in VC. I saw a network of women in VC, right? And where only women entrepreneurs who are VC, they are part of it. And because my global team was interacting with that and they become a part of it, and I was surprised to see that marquee VC founders, there were women entrepreneurs there. So, some kind of initiative like that might also help to promote the entrepreneurship, or maybe investing, and because that kind of forum, you guys can go and directly interact and take at least feedback, right, on this thing. So that's a very valid point taken. Anybody else would like to, anybody else would like to give last one suggestion, because now will be winding up the session in 2-3 minutes.
Apurva, there's one point which I thought we haven't really discussed, but maybe everyone would want to make, is that we've spoken about access to technology, access to finance, access to mentorship, access to the ecosystem of infrastructure, etc. But I think the women entrepreneurs need some special help to access to market. Because that really creates, we've seen it, in DBT and BIRAC, we've created this women ecosystem for women entrepreneurs. We've set up women incubators. We've set up women mentorship groups. We've set up special schemes for women entrepreneurs, incentives to help them through the various awards. But when we talk about markets, because that obviously involves a lot of networking and other aspects. So I think that needs a special focus as well. And we have tried to do it through our schemes. But again, DBT, BIRAC, and the biotech ecosystem is one model which needs to be scaled up to other sectors. We've done it through our incubators. We've given them. But I think now we need to move beyond domestic markets and look at international markets. We're talking about innovation hubs. We're talking about incubation connect programs. And I think there, the women entrepreneurs need to be given that special market access. So I think that's a point which needs to be thought about, and maybe accelerators like yours and investors should make a special, put a special focus on that.
Dedicated efforts for top line push of women entrepreneurs. Point taken, madam. Any other point, last point would you like to make, Padmaja?
Maybe just to pick up on what Ghazal mentioned, maybe a think tank, maybe DPIIT can think of on the Startup India, think of creating a small group which can come up with the studying what BIRAC has done, or what other ministries have done, or what other countries have done to promote women entrepreneurship, and come out with some SOPs or some guidelines which can be followed by all other ministries which promote entrepreneurship, in what ways they would incentivize women-led startups or women-led initiatives in this regard. If that becomes like an outcome of this forum, then it will be a good thing.
Okay, great.
I also would say that as part of the startup. Sorry, Padmaja, want to go ahead?
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Please go ahead.
So, as part of the startup initiative, I think that there's a lot of statistics that's put out. One of the things we should encourage, the end fund of funds and the entire startup ecosystem, there should be a lot more focus also in reporting gender diversity statistics. Today, that is absent. What happens is the fact, the moment you start getting some of these statistics up front, it also creates an awareness and a pressure to bring that awareness together, right? Is one. And so it could include that, whether it is one of the things is about women entrepreneurs, the other is also women VCs. So Padmaja would agree that, wherever it's women VCs, we are obviously not, we are more, we ensure that there's no gender biases in our evaluation.
Right.
So those statistics should be available, whether it's VCs, entrepreneurs, what is pipeline.
Some data point
pipeline number there. Data points should be highlighted. Should be made as part of that. That should be there. Over to you, Padmaja.
I would just add one point, if I may. I think one big takeaway I would see as a part of this panel is if we can recommend very strongly a debt fund for SMEs, right? And a debt fund which can also help women-led SMEs. And I think the more important piece there would be, while the fund can be created, I think the quote-unquote IC of the fund needs to be very gender diverse. Something that we, in fund of funds, we don't see a gender diversity in the IC, right? So I think a fund of funds to create...
Very, very strong point Padmaja has made. Huh?
Yeah, I think we should bring in gender diversity right from there. The second piece to Ghazala's point that we must have a level playing field, and with respect to some of the panelists who have made this point, I would really not agree with creating CSR money for women entrepreneurs. Women are not going to be, they don't need CSR, honestly.
Done.
They can make it on their own.
Done,
They've
done.
made it on their own. They will continue.
That is fine.
Yeah. So I would, I just wanted to make that point because I think it's a very, I think level playing field in every
Point
way.
taken, madam.
We'll have it over a cup of coffee, Padmaja, later.
Rather we will have some fellowship for like Peter Thiel fellowship kind of for women entrepreneurs to promote and encourage.
I think gender, if we want level playing field, we should actually consider people irrespective of gender, honestly.
Done. Done. Thank you. I can see Astha coming in. That means the time is over. We just finished 1 hour of conversation. Thank you very much for it.
Purva, create a critical mass, create a base. You give them a level playing field. You don't need any special funds of CSR then.
Sure. Sure.
Okay.
Done, madam. Great inputs.
Thank
you very much.
Thanks a lot for
you were saying
organizing.
something.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everyone. I just came in to thank that this panel was really amazing. And, I was enjoying it from the other side, but I thought I'll take a minute to come in and say a special thanks to all of you for your honest comments and all the points that you made with respect to Startup India. We have noted that and we will work on that as well. But thank you for taking our time. Thank you.
We just took all points and put it on your desk.
Absolutely. Always. We'll take it forward.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rema. Thank you, Dr. Renu.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rapur. Thank you.
See all of you all again.